This is you can do pretty much any one you choose here, and this is us just kind of playing around with what we learned in the last lesson with using our brushes to kind of create this like particle type effect. So at this point you should have already done the tutorial called Particle Man. Anyway, so I chose Gambit as mine, and basically what we're doing is we're creating posters out of our favorite characters. And of course I'm a comic book nerd, so of course I'm going to choose Gambit or somebody like that. I was going to do Magneto, but you know. And I want to kind of do this quickly because I know there's a Lady Gaga concert coming on soon in a couple hours here. So I want to make sure. Oh, actually, I don't want to do that. And there's a football game or something. Like she's doing something with a football game. It must have something to do with her new album. I'm not really sure. Anyway, so let's go ahead and start by duplicating our top layer and saying okay. And what we're going to basically do is remove Gambit from the background with content aware fill. I'm going to select him with the lasso tool, trying really hard not to cut off his hair, his pretty locks. There we go. And I'm going to right click after I get it selected. And just like the Particle Man, I'm going to say fill, content aware fill. And give it a second so that we get a nice white background that we've removed our character from. Come on now, come on. Alright, double click to deselect. Go ahead and drop this layer below that layer. Let's call this one background, double click. Call this one background. Alright. So now I have Gambit, who's detached from the background layer. I'm going to right click and, actually no, I'm going to quick select first, I believe, if I remember correctly. And go ahead and select our character Gambit. And that looks actually pretty good. I'm going to say select and mask. Just kind of go over the hair a little bit, even though it doesn't really. And then come over here and select layer mask. Alright, and select OK. Alright, so now you can see that I have this layer mask. I'm going to right click on this and duplicate it and say OK. I'm actually going to select the mask on layer 0 copy and right click and say apply layer mask. Alright, and this is going to give me my layer that I'm going to transform. So I'm going to right click and duplicate one more time. And I'm kind of ready to rock and roll. Let's go ahead and select layer 0 copy, and you can double click and label that whatever you would like. And I'm going to come up here and say filter, liquify. Alright, and liquify is all about the brush size, and it's all about the pressure. So with my brush, yay big at 161 for this one, I'm just going to start pulling the pixels and kind of covering the back of the canvas with the pixels of his hair and some from maybe his face. I'm not going to mess up his face too much. And his coat. And little by little just start pulling it out. There you go. And messing it up. Okay, so while the background seems to be covered, a little bit, there, and I'm going to press OK down here. Alright, with layer 0 copy selected, hold down Alt on your keyboard and press layer mask. That's going to give me a black layer mask on layer 0 copy and layer 0 copy 2. I'm just going to add a regular white mask to it. I'm going to come over here and make sure my foreground is set to black. If it's not, you can switch it right here. Grab your paintbrush. Grab a brush style that looks like a bunch of particles. If you don't have the two that I'm going to use, which is Explosion and Explosion 1, which are awesome, you can use pretty much any one of these that say like, dry dry brush tip, or there's a scatter one in here somewhere. There's a sponge brush projection. So with this layer selected, actually I'm going to turn off both of these guys. I'm going to start kind of deleting some of Gambit. I'm going to open up my brush presets so I can rotate this brush. And just start deleting some of Gambit. Okay. And don't freak out. It's a non-destructive transformation. We're going to bring him back in a second. Alright, so something like that. That might be a little too much, but we'll see. And then go ahead and select Layer 0 Copy, switch the foreground and background color, bring in your eyeball there, and I'm going to do a little bit of bigger brush and start bringing it back in. Right now my opacity is set to 97. I'm going to drop that a little bit actually. And you kind of see how it gives it this particle effect, as if he were being dissolved or something like that from the right hand side. Alright, so be careful, don't click around too much, because you still want to have this like fade effect of the actual particles. I'm going to switch brushes and see if I can't do any better with this one. Shrink it down a little bit. Not that much. Kind of like that. That's way cool. Something like that. Alright. And like I said, you don't want to bring it in too much. You want to have this like particle effect from the left hand side. And you can do this with pretty much any character that you want to, guys. I'm going to say once you're done with it, you probably want to flatten your layers. Oh, one more step. Forgot all about this. With your text tool, what we're going to do is some cool, because we're making like posters here, right? So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to select my text color to be black. I always say once you select your text tool, go ahead and select all your presets. It's 72 right now. That's pretty big. I'll keep it like that. And let's find a cool font for me to use here for my Gambit text. And you can kind of look at the samples. You can always type it out too and then do this part and then browse. But I always like to get kind of a cool one going before I even start typing, and then I can change it later. Book Antiqua. How about that one? Let's try that. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Gambit. Like that. I might want to free transform it and spin it around a little bit and catty corner it. Whoops. I want to take the middle of it. Kind of like that. Here's my text layer over here. I'm going to double click on it and give it some effects. I'm going to give it a bevel emboss effect. I'm going to give it a drop shadow, and I'm going to make my drop shadow color red. That's kind of my thing these days. I don't know why. There. Kind of like that. And, you know, let's just kind of play around. See if you can't make it look really cool. Some of these effects are different depending on what font you pick, so you never know really how they're going to look until you just kind of play around with it. Satin. What color overlay? Nah, that looks a little faded. I kind of like my text just the way it is. Let me see my bevel emboss. An outer bevel. That looks a little better. Makes it pop a little bit more. Alright, something like that. And then when you're done, select all your layers with the Shift key and say Layer, Flatten Image, and then say File, Save As. Make sure you say JPEG. Go ahead and change your file name. I'm going to put mine on my desktop. I'm going to call this one Gambit version 2 and hit save. Alright, and then press OK. So there's nothing really new in this one except for the text tool. When you guys are done, make sure you turn in the JPEG of this. And again, you should have done Particle Man first. This is kind of the second version of Particle Man with a little bit of text thrown on top of it. Alright, have fun.